Perfect. So hopefully you can now all see my screen and I've got my questions on the right hand side. So I'll check in on that periodically as well. Let me just confirm that. No worries, Kamal. No worries. So, welcome to the first session in the AI Automation Live Workshop series. Like I've mentioned already to anyone that was here, it's going to be super informal. So, hopefully, we're going to teach you a series of things over the next 4 weeks. And that is starting from absolute zero. So, you don't need a technical background, you don't need to know anything about this to actually follow along and start building today. As we go through, ask questions, we will stop by. But I'd love for you to start by actually, before I talk about the goals of this 4 workshop series, just write in one goal that you have for this series. Like, what made you actually join this series? What made 2026 the right time for you to join this? I'd love if you could just drop a note in the chat. Absolutely, Florian. Practice is always good. So Florian's been a member of the community for a few months now, so he's obviously coming to this to learn a bit more as well. Read a lot about it on Reddit and felt I needed to know more. Nice. That's a great answer. Provide automation consulting services. Yeah. Looking to build something useful to reduce my day-to-day task and build productivity. Nice. Great. So those are some really good goals. So the goals that I've set out for this full workshop series is firstly to understand what's possible beyond ChatGPT. So many of you from the last few years might be familiar with actually using ChatGPT. You might be using it for some tasks in your day to day, and you might recognize some of these statements like summarize this meeting transcript, make this email more professional for me, write a social media post about this. And often, like when you're starting out with things like ChatGPT and AI, you're posting things like this into ChatGPT, getting a response, and it's like a copy paste loop, and you're still acting as a middleman between you and actually automating the entire process overall. So it's to show you what is possible beyond that ChatGPT window. It's to learn the 80/20. So in this community, we strongly believe in the 80/20. If you've not heard of it before, it's basically the Pareto principle, which is the 20% of things you need to know, which will give you 80% of the value. So what we're not going to do in this 4 hour series is overwhelm you with 1,000 nodes, all of the different automation models, everything like that. What we're trying to stick to is the 20% that you need to know at this point to give you 80% of the value. So we're trying to keep it concise and only to what you need to know. And also, it's the start building. So, one big blocker for a lot of people between achieving their goals is actually just having a little bit of a go on the N8N canvas or the automation canvas or beyond ChatGPT and actually start building something out. So, the format of this series is going to be 4 sessions, 4 1 hour sessions. We're going to cover all of the fundamentals, the 80/20 that we just discussed, and we're also aiming to build alongside. So it's going to be at a slow pace that you can actually open up a canvas and start building it alongside us. And also, as you get stuck, ask us your questions. And alongside that, ask your questions as we go along. And any questions you have after the session, if you're practicing this stuff, then feel free to post it inside the community and we'll get back to you on those as well. So I wanted to start off the session just talking a little bit about who I am and where I've come from, if you don't know that already. So I've kind of split this down into three. The first part of my journey was kind of the last year. So I'm super passionate about teaching and implementation of AI automation and workflow automation. So a lot of people know me from my YouTube channel, Simon Scrapes, where I've built up over the last year 36,000 subscribers. But that is only one part of the story. I've also taught on other platforms. So I've got 12,000 learners in 2 active courses on Udemy. We've got an active community, which you're all aware of because you're actually part of it to be part of this. I've then also actually really passionate about making sure I'm not just teaching stuff that is theory and that I'm actually implementing it as well. So I started my journey about 18 months ago with N8N and actually went straight onto Upwork and started applying for jobs. So since then, I've had 100% job success and been top rated on Upwork, started an automation agency. So what we're teaching here is actually practical stuff that we've implemented inside of businesses. And I'm super passionate about teaching that as well. But I wasn't always technical. It was 18 months ago where I first started becoming, I guess, quote unquote technical. I started as non-technical. So prior to that, I was in a London-based startup for 3 years, heading up the operations team. So my role was effectively to manage the team. It was to make sure that we got all the boxes delivered to the customers. It was nothing to do with tech. I wasn't coding. I wasn't doing anything like that. I was just using things like Excel, and a lot of you will use in your day to day. And prior to that, I had experience in a much, much larger organization. You'll probably recognize the symbol here, the logo for Deloitte. So I spent 3 or 4 years actually working with lots of different businesses of a much bigger size. So there's no one size fits all. My journey's been totally different, and everyone in the community has different backgrounds that they've come from. But the important thing here is it's accessible to everyone. I thought also it would be a little bit of fun to guess like who you are as people, and you can tell me in the chat if I'm completely off here. But I had a go at guessing like the kind of three types of people we see come through the community or get in touch with us for various reasons. So you might already be somebody who owns a business and actually maybe you're looking to save costs in your business. Maybe you're looking to scale your business without actually scaling headcount and using automations to do that. Maybe you're looking to actually generate more leads through automation and not through hiring. Maybe you're aspiring to sell AI automations, and I know I saw a few comments in the goals there around actually turning this into a skill that they can sell to others. So maybe you actually want to take this, learn the skills, and then sell it to other businesses as well. Or maybe you're looking, sorry, to speed up your work as an employee. So maybe you're working for a business and you're looking to actually just upskill or speed up your work or get promoted or anything like that. So that's kind of like a whistle stop tour of where we're going with the course. Let's talk about what we're aiming to do today. Firstly, we are looking to understand what workflow automation and AI automation actually are. So we're going to start at the very, very basics and talk about like what they actually mean in practice. What does that look like inside a business? I want to emphasize this fact that absolutely anybody can do this. 18 months ago, I wasn't technical. And just by consistent efforts, I've got to this stage where I'm actually teaching it now. And I've seen so many hundreds of people do this too, start at non technical backgrounds and actually work their way through this. We're going to show you where all the resources are. We're going to set up N8N, which is our chosen automation platform. We'll cover more about that. I've obviously said this before, but ask any questions as you go through. We are here to explore the fundamentals today and talk about that 80/20. Build your first automation. It will be small today because we need to learn the fundamentals, but we will build an automation and also show you what you'll build over the next 3 weeks. Now, I'll just take a quick pause there for any questions. Does that sound like something you want to be part of? And does that sound good? And we can carry on. Great stuff. Thank you for the thumbs up. It's always good to get some feedback when you're talking to a screen. Basically, it's easy to forget that actually you guys are on the background of the screen, because I can't actually see anyone. So let's start with the basics. So what is workflow automation and AI automation, and how do they differ? And if any of this doesn't make sense, interrupt me and we can go over it in more detail. So workflow automation is just a system that moves a task from point A to point B based on a fixed set of rules. So you might have done some like conditional logic in the past. So it's basically if this were to happen, then this should happen. So it's just a path of actions. So, for example, if you ran a business, whoops, a customer might fill out a contact form on your website, and that's what we call a trigger. That's an event that takes place. And off the back of that, the system automatically sends them a thank you email. And it also adds their name to a spreadsheet or your CRM or your database. So that is workflow automation. It's just if a customer fills out the form successfully, then another action will take place, then another action will take place. So you can just think of this as a sequence of flows there. So AI automation is not too dissimilar. It's workflow automation, but uses AI somewhere in that loop. So an example might be when a customer sends a long support email, which is your trigger, the thing that activates the workflow, then the system sends the email text to something like ChatGPT, an LLM. It determines whether the customer's happy or sad, the sentiment of it. The next action is the system pings the customer service Slack channel, maybe, or their email with a summary. And then finally, a high priority tag is only assigned to those customers where the sentiment was angry or frustrated. Just go to the questions. I've just seen a question pop up from Sam. Can I ask why you use Excalibur instead of all other tools, Miro, Figma, etc., for presentations? It's actually just a personal choice. I just thought, actually, how am I going to convey certain messages as part of this? And decided that actually I just like to kind of workshop it out. I use Excalibur quite a lot for the different videos that I use. So I just like to put bullet points and then think about what I'm trying to convey with those bullet points. Is it better to use ChatGPT or Gemini for lessons? I'm not sure what you mean by lessons there, Mano, but in general, we will actually talk like throughout the series, we will talk about how to use different models, what models are best for what, and an easy way to actually access all models, but also work out which model is the priority for you and what you should use at the time. And I think we also had one question about would you also showcase how to self host N8N? So, in this series, what we're going to do is use the cloud free trial of N8N just because it's easiest for most people to get up and running. But we, of course, can point you to the resources about self hosting and the benefits of self hosting inside the community as well after this. Great. So, can anybody do this? So, we've talked about workflow automation, AI automation. Can anybody do this? You don't need a technical background. The tools we use, N8N, make it super simple to get started. It's literally just some blocks on a canvas, very visual, drag and drop, connect between them. You don't need a lot of time. So, a lot of pushback we get sometimes is around needing hours and hours a day to learn this. But actually, most people in the community are just spending maybe 30 minutes a day or 30 minutes every couple of days. Little and often is much better than doing 8 hours at once and then not touching it for the next month. And you don't need to see straight away what this would do for you. So there's going to be a lot of concepts introduced today, but you might not immediately think, wow, I could use this for this use case in my business or in the way I work. It doesn't matter. As you build out some examples, you will start to see the power of this. It's basically like comparing if you were a developer, you can literally feel like you can build anything inside your business. So this kind of tool gives you the power to build anything, but without the complexity of writing all the underlying code. So before we get started with the fundamentals, I wanted to just show you what we will end up building over the next 3 weeks. And these are to be confirmed at the moment because actually, if you decide actually we want to build something else or we have more time, then we can actually build more stuff as well. So the first one is something you'll probably recognize as a content flow that you might already do with ChatGPT if you're using that already. So, right now, you might be using ChatGPT to actually help you write your social media content. So, you might, for example, be opening LinkedIn, looking at some posts that people that you like and follow have posted that week. You might be taking part of that content and saying, rewrite it for my business or rewrite it for my purpose. We're pasting that manually into ChatGPT. We're writing a prompt to tell ChatGPT exactly what to do for us. And then we're waiting for that output to be output by ChatGPT. We're then copying those ideas straight into LinkedIn and actually probably pasting those, then going out and finding an image, etc. So this, although better than actually writing the content from scratch, is still manually slow and painful. Now, actually, we can and will create a flow that is an automated end-to-end flow where actually every Monday or every Tuesday or whenever, we're going to go out and scrape your favorite creators using a service called Appify. And what we're going to do is use an AI agent to actually generate ideas for you and paste those ideas into a Google Sheet. So on a Monday morning, you can come in, you can see what's been trending in the last week. And here's 5 to 10 ideas that you could post out on social media, and they're all written in your brand voice. So that is one of the big builds that we're going to do during the course of this. The second one is actually taking ChatGPT to where you work. So right now, you're probably working between multiple apps, or at least in my experience, I was working between a lot of different apps. I want to show you how actually you can just use an automated workflow to connect multiple apps. So you might, for example, be working in Slack day to day. You take your information to ChatGPT and then you're pasting that into ChatGPT. You're writing the prompt, you're waiting for that output again, and you're taking the polished text back and you're pasting it back into a Slack message. So, how can we just integrate AI where we already work? How can we put the ChatGPT interface effectively into where we're currently working, which might be Slack, it might be Office, it might be elsewhere as well? Do those sound good to everyone? Does anyone have any questions at this point that we wanna stop for? Do those sound like relevant use cases as well? If those aren't, we can always pick different use cases that we can build. I'm very flexible with how people want to run this. It doesn't affect today's session because we need to talk about the fundamentals of doing this anyway. Brilliant. Before we talk about the fundamentals, I wanted to just show you some of the comments from community members about automations they've built. So often they come in at the same level as you, and they haven't worked with N8N before. They're not technical, but they either run a business, they want to sell these services, or they're an employee want to upskill. And this is just a flavor of what other people are achieving that they never thought was possible before this. So we first got Matt, who actually does weekly live streams on YouTube. So before, he was manually taking those live streams, creating a recap of that. So now he's able to actually, instead of doing the work himself on a Friday night, he takes the YouTube transcript automatically. AI does the summary for him. The summary is then converted to AI voice, and he's even started creating podcasts from that transcript summary as well. So he's taken some work that he did before manually and actually saved the hours every Friday night. But not only that, he's also increasing the amount of content he's able to produce because he's just created a workflow to do that for him. Or we've got somebody like Daniel here, who's actually just been paid for his first client production build. So it was actually a very simple problem that the client was facing. It was syncing up their e-commerce store. So whenever on Shopify the stock went out, the website would not sync up. So customers were greeted with out of stock or not even out of stock. They tried to order it and wouldn't be able to order it and get frustrated. So now this simple workflow that he's built from learning the skills here checks supplier inventory against Shopify And then products that are available get published automatically to the website. Products that are blocked get hidden automatically. So something very simple that he's able to build for the client, having come from a non-technical background as well. We've then got others like Mario, who landed their first client with a travel agency in Benelux. We've got Julian, who actually not only sells this to other people, but also landed a new role at a company called Totality for an AI automation role off the back of learning this stuff. And then we've also got Brianne, who's similar to Matt that we showed at the start. Brianna is a stay-at-home mum. She now is able to actually produce her podcast content copy automatically, whereas before she was doing this as a very, very manual step. And then finally, we've got Oliver, who's actually completely automated his whole outbound through LinkedIn, through automation in a human-like way, so that he no longer has to actually spend hours manually outreaching to people who he knows are his leads already on LinkedIn. It's all done automatically through workflows like this. So there's only one thing for it, which is you've seen what's possible. Let's get started with the fundamentals now. So I'd like everybody to go to school.com/scrapes. And this is where we'll start to set up everything. And just give us some thumbs up once you're there. And if you head to the classroom section, we set up a new module here called the Live Workshop Series. If you click into that, it's the big blue module. We're going to keep all of the workflows that you need to download, every link, etc., in here as we go through. So if you click on number 1, N8N, we've actually got an affiliate link sign up here to the 14-day free trial. You don't need to use the affiliate link if you don't want to, just go to n8n.io. But if you click on that link, it's going to bring you to the N8N website. Now, N8N is just the tool that we're going to use to create these automations. So it's just drag and drop blocks. You can see Slack is this block inside here that we connect to different bits of data. So when you're inside this, you're going to go get started. And I've already got an account here with a free trial. So it will prompt you to actually sign up. So sign up with your email to that account. You'll receive a verification email and it will take maybe a few minutes to go through and get started there. And then if you drop inside the chat when you've got started on that. Yes, Phil. N8N inside Railway, or if you're already self-hosting, this will absolutely work. There's a few bits that are going to be different, like when we sign up to things like Google Mail, etc. It's a little bit more complicated, but I can point you to the guide when we do that stuff. So I'll just give you guys a few minutes to sign up. No rush. I'm just going to go and grab some water and then we will carry on. Yes, Kamar. It is school.com/scrapes. In fact, if I just share the link directly in the chat. And inside that module there, we'll share all the workflows that we need to download and the N8N sign up link. So once you've done that, just drop that in the chat and I'll be back in 2 minutes. Neha, if you want to sign up to the self-hosted version, you can go into the classroom, go to the AI Automation Masterclass, and then I believe it's the N8N Quick Start playbook. At the start of this video, it should take you through actually signing up to the self-hosted account. I'd highly recommend, if you haven't already started it, signing up with Ales.io, because they do all the automatic updates and everything for you. So it's around $15 a month, and it's the one we recommend inside the community. No problem. Can you give me a thumbs up in the chat if you have got the N8N workflow instance ready yet? Great. It seems like a fair few of you have got that set up. So you'll probably, once you sign into that workflow instance, be greeted with a screen that says start from scratch or try an AI workflow or something like that. If you click on start from scratch, it's going to take you to a blank canvas, or you can click on create workflow here, and you'll be greeted with this blank canvas here. As we go through this, if I'm going too quick, just prompt me inside the chat. So we're going to go back to the school module here, the live workshop series, and you're going to go to the fundamentals part 1, and you're going to click to download this file here. So you're going to click, we're going to download it. It's called Demo of Triggers. What we're then going to do, just close that window there, is go to the 3 dots in the right hand corner, import from file, and you're just going to open up that Demo of Triggers file. And you should have, once you've done that, this very simple view of a few nodes on the canvas here. And what it should have done as well is renamed it up here to Demo of Triggers automatically if it was called Workflow 1 or something like that. Mark, the download is from this link in the school community. Let me just send it. So if you just click on the fundamentals part 1, click to download this file, and it will only work if you've got your N8N instance open there. Give me a thumbs up when you're at that point. Great, thanks, Willie. Thank you, Christian, Sergio. If you drop in the chat, Donatus, what's not working, and then maybe we can help you troubleshoot that as we go through. So to open it, go to a blank canvas. So if you go back to the home page, the overview on your N8N workflow, you will either have a screen like this where you can create a new workflow, or you will have a workflow that says a screen that says start from scratch. So you can click on the start from scratch, click on the 3 dots in the top right corner, import from file, and then click on the download. And once you open that, it will open up this JSON code as well, Sam. Interesting. Florian, have you got the latest version of N8N, perhaps? Perhaps there's been changes to the if and create a draft nodes, because this is on N8N Cloud, which should be updated. If any nodes are broken or don't appear on your screen, what you can do is just go to the plus icon up here and type in the same name. Maybe it's, for example, the if node. You can reopen the if node there, but we'll come to each of those. What I first wanted to do was explain, great stuff, Mark, explain a little bit about the basics and what you're seeing on your screen because it can be quite overwhelming at first. There's a lot of buttons to press, but honestly, it is actually very straightforward once you know the basics. So, what we are seeing on the screen is the canvas. All of this with dots on the background is just called the N8N canvas. And every block that you see, visual block, is called a node. So a node just represents an app or an action we want to take, or a trigger that is like an event happening on that. So what we have in the right hand corner is called the nodes panel, and you can either hit tab on your keyboard to open that, or click the plus icon up here, and you will see a series of groups of nodes that we can play around with. So there are like key groups that you need to understand and know about. And I guess there's three or four key groups. The first is actually taking actions in our apps. So say, for example, we wanted to work with Google Mail. Yes, the basis start from scratch. We'll open that and you can click the dots on the top there. So, say for example, we wanted to start from Google Mail. We click on Action in an app, and we'd search either Gmail or Google Mail. We can see it is as a node category in here, and then once we click on that, we have a bunch of different actions that we can take with that. For example, we could create a draft email. So if we click on that, it's going to open up a new window, which is actually just inside the node. And we'll stick outside the node for now, back on the canvas, but we'll talk about the three things that make up a node: the input, the data transformation, and the output in a minute. So there are various type of nodes, and a node just represents an action that we want to take. And you can see it's very visual drag and drop here. So the other type of node that we have is a trigger. So we already talked about when a client fills out something on our website, that would be an event trigger. So at the start of every single workflow that you build will always be a trigger of some sort. So whenever you don't have any nodes on the canvas, whenever you go to hit the nodes panel, it's always going to actually ask you what triggers this workflow. Is it a manual trigger, i.e., we're clicking this button down here and getting that to run manually when we're testing it? Is it going to run on an app event, like we receive a new Google Mail in our inbox on message received? Is it going to run every week, Monday at 9 a.m.? So if we click on the schedule trigger, it's opened up the node trigger there, but we can click out back to the canvas. So is it going to, run every day, one day between triggers at 5 a.m., for example? So is it going to be time-based? Or are we going to activate this by sending in data from an external source? So maybe, for example, instead of clicking manually on the workflow or a Google Mail, um, um, an email coming in, or every day at 9 a.m. or 5 a.m., perhaps we're going to send in some data from an external source. So the point is actually a trigger is just how we activate the node. Great stuff, Phil. Are you all caught up with where we are at the moment? Great stuff. Great stuff. So we have a canvas, and what we're doing is placing different apps or actions on that canvas, which are the form of nodes. Let me just reload our template back in. So if you need to load the template back in, go up to the three dots, import from file, and it will appear again. So we have various nodes down here, and they are in an inactive state at the moment, or deactivated state. So this means that whenever I try and run this node, nothing will happen. I can't actually run it. It's deactivated and it can't run. So this is really useful because actually a lot of the time when you're building out bigger workflows, you don't want to have all of your nodes run at the same time. So you often go through and deactivate the nodes so that they can't cause errors or can't run whilst you're testing an isolated thing. But to activate them, what we're going to do is just click on the power icon or D on the keyboard once we've clicked each node, and that's going to bring them to life. And you can see that when they bring back some color. So all of these you can bring back to life or highlight and deactivate using D on the keyboard or the little power icon there. It's a really good question, Mark. So Mark's asked, if I wanted to read an email at 9 a.m. in the morning, would you have a time trigger, then a trigger for looking up at the email? Or would you trigger it directly for, well, there's kind of two answers to this. You can do either. That is the beauty of having workflow automation. Is actually you choose how you want to trigger this. So you could either have a scheduled trigger that says at 9 a.m. every day, I'm going to read my, let's say, Outlook email. So it would be Outlook, and this is just a demonstration, no need to follow on with this. It could be get a message from my email at 9 a.m. every day. Or you could actually choose, instead of that being the trigger, to actually say, does Outlook have any triggers itself? If we scroll all the way down, we can see a trigger that says, actually, on a message received, we are going to actually take an action instead. So you can choose, you can either say at 9 a.m., I'm going to actually read an email, or I'm going to choose to read every email as they come in and take an action based on that. So we have a bunch of trigger nodes, and that is always the start of our flow. We then have an important concept, which is conditions. So we talked about workflows being a set of actions. If this action takes place, then this action should happen. So often you have a workflow such as the one below. If I get rid of these triggers now, you can just highlight and delete on your keypad. We might say, we're going to read every single Gmail that comes in. And if it's from Simon, then we're going to take an action on it. If it's not from Simon, then we might take another action on it. And now what starting to see is the logic of connecting up different actions in a sequence of events, which is actually just a workflow there. Yes, of course, we can talk about the activations of nodes. So activate the nodes either by hitting the power icon above the nodes. And if you just keep clicking that, it deactivates and activates that node. And the alternative there is you can click on it and actually just hit D for deactivate on your keyboard, and that will alternate between activated and deactivated as well. And the benefit in that is actually when we're not using something, we could potentially just deactivate it. So we can test just this sequence rather than worrying about this causing an error and stopping us a little bit. Yeah, I can zoom in. That's absolutely fine. So we have nodes, we have triggers, and then we have these conditions. So, and condition is just a node that's saying if something happens, then take a different action or take a certain set of actions. So, for example, I've connected this up already to a Google Mail account, and we'll talk through how to do that. But every message is received by my Google Mail trigger here. So if I publish this workflow, and we'll come back to what publishing actually means, then every day it's going to be reading my email. Every single minute, it's going to be reading my email on repeat without me doing a thing. And then every time it reads my email, it's going to push between the arrows. So I can just drag and drop between the nodes. If I wanted to connect this to that, I could as well. I can connect anything to anything almost. Then what it's going to do is push that data through to this if node. And we will show you an example. And then if that if node says, okay, the reply or the from box in the email, and don't worry about the actual tech part here, the from box in the email does not contain no reply. i.e., it's an email I'm likely to reply to. If that is true, then what we might want to do is actually automatically create a draft in our email inbox. So it's the event takes place, the trigger. If this scenario is true, then we're going to take a certain action. If this scenario is false, then what I might want to do is take a different action. So I can click on the plus icon, and here from experience, I know there's a no operation, do nothing, which means if it's true, we'll take this action. If it's false, no operation, do nothing. Is that all making sense so far? If it is, we'll move on to the next concept and actually see the data flow through this. Publish and activate are slightly different things. So publish just means that actually if we have a workflow that's available to be published, like right now, if I just went away and left this, it would not read my email inbox because I've not actually published it. Now I can force it to read my email inbox through this button here or the little zigzag here that executes the workflow. But if I go away, close down my computer, this isn't going to run without me. As soon as I hit that publish button up here and actually publish a version, now it's going to say, actually, this version has been published. It's going to automatically start reading my email. Every minute, it's going to start taking actions on my email. So if I want to unpublish, I can actually come up here and unpublish it. Whereas activate and deactivate is just on a node level, not a workflow level. So you can deactivate that specific node, which means that node will never run. So what we're going to do now is demonstrate how to actually force it to pass through data so that we can actually see that data running through, because one of the next most important concepts is just inputs, transformation, and outputs. So inside every node, when you open up the nodes panel, you type in Gmail, you have a bunch of actions down here. It doesn't really matter what action you click on at first because you can change inside the node what you're actually doing. So, say for example, we want to create a draft email, it's going to open up our node. And we talked a little bit about this already, but we have an input on the left hand side. We have what we want to do to the data that's input. And then we have the output on the right hand side. So I can force NAN to actually pull an email from my Google Mail trigger, and I'd like you to do the same. So what we're first going to do is go into by double clicking the Gmail trigger. Your credentials up here, you probably will appear with no credentials. So what you're going to do is click create a new credential. And if you're using a cloud account, this will be significantly easier because actually it allows us to just use the Google's authentication or OAuth to sign in with Google. So we're going to click on that. We're going to go through and actually sign into our account. So you can literally click there. So you can create new credential, click on OAuth 2, and actually go through the process that you would normally do on a website to actually sign in automatically with one click. You can see we've got a few errors popping up here, but that's absolutely fine. Once you've gone through that sign-in process, just give us a thumbs up inside there. Now, if you're self-hosting, this is slightly more complicated for things like Google Mail, and I will point you to a guide, or maybe Solomon can link to the guide of setting up your Google Mail account when you're self-hosting. So what we can do is actually now force the Google Mail trigger to push the data through. So if I hit execute workflow, I just need to make sure I'm connected to the right account up here in the credentials. Every minute it's going to pull this, but when we're fetching a test event, we can either do this down here to execute the full workflow or click into the node and just do it on a node level. So I'm going to fetch test event. And what it's going to do is actually just send me one email or show me one email, the top email from my inbox. And you can see on the right hand side, whoops, you can see inside here, we've got no inputs because the input is actually just activating it itself. The transformation we're making to this is actually just asking it to fetch that test event for us. And then we can drag and drop these screens here across, and we've got the data on the right hand side. So it might even, uh, it will likely appear in a table format, and it looks a bit like gibberish at the moment. We've got a snippet, which is the summary of the email. So this one's about a school community that's sent me a cold outreach mastery email. It's got stuff about the size of the email. It's got the labels that have been given to it by my Google Mail. It's got who it's from. It's got the subject. And what we've done by clicking simplify here is actually just taking the key details. If you come back out to the node canvas, you can see that we've now got that in green, which signifies that we've had a successful run. But because we only isolated this one and clicked the play button or fetch test event on this, it's not pushed it through the rest of the workflow. So what we're able to do here is actually execute the workflow down here. And what it will do is then actually execute the entire workflow. So we'll have the same Google Mail trigger come back in, and you can see that one item's been passed from that trigger to our if node. So right now we're not worried about the conditions inside our if node, just that actually data is flowing through our flow. So Kamar, with your error when fetching the test event, you need to make sure your Gmail is correct connected to the correct credential, sorry, on there. And it just looks like a credential issue on there. So when you're connecting to a credential, make sure that you click OAuth 2, make sure that you sign in with Google, follow that process through. I won't click it because you'll see all my different accounts on here. Follow that process through. It will just ask you to sign into a specific account, and then that account will be set up on your N8N environment. So what we're seeing now is data flowing through the process. So we're starting to understand that actually we've got a workflow, we've got a trigger, i.e., an email comes in, we're taking an action on it, and then we are ending with an action, which is creating a draft. So inside this condition here, we can actually determine and set that condition. So we have the Google Mail trigger, and then we're going to say, if I just get rid of this text here and this text here, inside this, we have the first visual of what it's like to see inside a node that has data um, running through it. So on the left-hand side, we see all of the input data. So if I go to table view on both of these, you can see that we see exactly what was the output on the Gmail trigger now as the input for our if node. So we can see exactly what data is being passed in. We're going to take some actions or transformation in the middle, and then we can see exactly what data is passed through. So if I just execute this as is with no conditions in here, it's just going to act as a thing that passes the values through. So if I execute that step, um, it's just basically saying this input has now been passed through to your false branch in your output. But say, for example, I wanted to create a workflow out of this where I said, if the email does not have no reply in the from box, then I want to actually create a draft reply. So I'm going to look for the from box in the table here. And actually, all I need to do is just drag and drop it. And it's going to say $JSON.from. And we'll talk about JSON in the next session. But this is the underlying data structure that you will get used to and you will see often. That is basically how do we grab this data and treat it dynamically. So instead of writing cold outreach mastery inside here or no reply at school.com, what I'm doing is dynamically pulling the data so that every single email that comes through, I can read that specific email. So what we're saying here in this condition is if the from box, which will be present in every email, and then we can say contains, so we go string contains no reply, then take a certain action on it. Or we could say does not contain. So we choose the condition at which we want to filter and sort the data here. So actually, we'll say string does not contain. So what we're actually saying in logic form here is if this from box does not contain no reply, then I'm actually going to create a reply. Does that make sense from a logic point of view? It's a good question, Sam. You don't have to send yourself an email. If you've connected up in your Google Mail trigger to your Google Mail account, if you just click Fetch Test Event inside that Google Mail trigger or execute the workflow directly, you'll see that it will automatically pull your latest email into your trigger here. It's a really good question, Hannah. Does the spelling of no reply versus no dash reply matter? It depends. It depends what you're building it out for. So in this case, if you wanted to make this foolproof and actually every email that contained no reply, you wanted to take this condition on, then you'd add a new condition and you'd say again in this from box does not contain no dash reply. Because what you're doing is adding conditions under which these rules mean that the next part of the flow takes the correct data. All good, Sam. Hopefully, you're connected now to the box. Now, conscious we've got obviously 5 minutes left of this session. So, what I want to do is just get to the end of this workflow and then we can talk about what we'll actually cover in the next sessions. And then we can wrap up for today because I'm conscious of everyone's time here as well. And I can stay afterwards to answer a few questions as well for anyone that can stay. Correct, Hannah. Yes, you can use and you can use and actually what we're doing is compiling multiple conditions inside here. But the important thing to note is kind of we've got this input data, we're taking some sort of transformation on it, and on the right hand side we have an output of that. So say for example we are saying that we are assessing every email. If the from box does not contain no reply, or does not contain no dash reply, then it's going to appear as true. So if we run that workflow, we'll execute the workflow. I'm just going to refresh. Seems to take some time sometimes. And it's passed that workflow through. So it's basically saying this last email that we've received, and it was a trial member. So I've now got a new email that's come in since we've been testing this, and that says actually somebody's joined as a trial. So it's now a completely different email, but the email is no reply still, no reply at school.com. So when that's passed through, you can see that that's met the condition of true, and we will take this action of creating a draft on the right hand side. So as you start to build these out, like one of the most important concepts is just understanding every node is just made up of an input, a transformation of some sort, and an output. You can see the data in various views. We'll cover that in the next section. But today we've been looking at the table data. And also, as you start to build these out and build on complexity, it's important to actually label everything that you're doing. So we have a Google Mail trigger here, which is quite appropriately named, but we have this if node, which isn't really appropriate. So we can either tap on it and press spacebar to open up the name bar, or we can double click inside it and click the name up here. And I might put something like if no reply or if space no reply or anything like that, just something suitable that you're going to be able to look back and say, I understand the logic of this workflow. So if there is a no reply in the email, then we want to create a draft. So what we're going to do is actually now to finish up, we're just going to, again, in this create a draft node, you're just going to go in and make sure that you're connected to the right credential. And it might ask you again, sometimes the trigger and the main node between Google Mail asks you to create that new credential, but you should have the credential that you just created up there. And what we're doing again is we've got some input data. All of this input is in here. We've got a transformation that we need to do, and then we haven't yet seen a draft reply actually being created. So what we're going to do is actually on the resource, we're just going to hit draft. On the operation, we're going to hit create, and we're just saying, Google Mail, create me in my account that I've given you permission to access a draft reply. It's not going to send it, it's just going to ask for a draft reply. So what we can do is just put draft reply, exclamation mark, and then you can put anything in the message. Hey, this is my first automation build. And we're going to send it as email type text. And now if I can either execute the step directly in there, or what I can do is come back to the workflow, hit save, execute that workflow again, and it will now create a draft reply in my inbox. But one thing I want you to see before you do that is actually if you want to actually use this as test data and not, risk a new email coming in as you're about to test it, you can come inside here or click this and actually what's called pin data. So go inside the Gmail trigger, and up on the right hand side, we can actually pin this data, which means now every time I run this inside this workflow as a test environment, we're always going to be looking at this email only. I'm not going to risk something coming in and me accidentally drafting a reply to an important client email or something like that. So once you're happy with that, you can either click on it and click P to pin it or go inside and pin it. And then you can actually execute the workflow. And if you go into your, like you see in this final node, it's basically saying, yes, we've done it. It's showing green. It's saying we've created a draft reply. If you go into your Google email inbox, what will happen is hopefully, anyway, you will see that actually there's been a new draft reply. In fact, if you go into your drafts, you will see that you've now created this draft reply, but there's some key details missing because we've not actually told it what email to reply to and who that's going to as well. But what you can see is actually the subject line is filled out and the text inside that is filled out as well. Everyone following so far? I'm conscious we're obviously 1 minute over where the time constraint was. So what we'll do is we'll start to wrap this up. I want to show you quickly how we make sure that we're pulling in and actually drafting a reply to the correct email. And then we'll talk about the next few weeks. So if you go into create a draft, what we're basically saying in this Google Mail node is create a draft in my inbox. We're not saying create a draft to reply to a certain email yet. So what we need to do is add an option down here. And we have various options. All nodes will have different options, but this one, we're basically going to say to email. And what that's allowing us to do is actually create a draft reply to a specific email. So we probably want to create it to the email that we had in here. So we'll drag and drop again the from across here. And then we'll also add an option for thread ID. And if we grab the thread ID and drag that across and drop that in there as well, we're basically telling it now, whenever you activate this node, make sure it's in response to the thread ID that you received before. So it's going to put that reply underneath in that Google Mail thread. And it's going to put in the to box the no reply at school.com. Now it might put at the moment, scrapes.ai, AI Academy, no reply at school.com, but we can talk about how to actually iterate in future lessons and change that data to what data we exactly want. But if you go back now, save and execute that workflow again, you'll hopefully see instead of creating a draft reply in your drafts there, it's now created a draft reply to the email that I actually wanted to reply to. And if I click into this, I can see the subject is draft reply. It's filled in the to box and it says, hey, this is my first automation build. Has everyone got to that point and understood exactly what they've done? Now, at this point, it might also be a bit like, now, why would I actually want to do this kind of thing? But when you're showing the fundamentals, what you've got to go through is the motions of doing very simple things to then understand what kind of things are actually possible when you start building out actual systems for this. And we'll start building out actual systems in the next few workshops as well. Great stuff. So, what I want to finish off by showing you is just a quick glimpse of exactly what kind of stuff we're going to go through in the next few sessions. And then as the week goes on, feel free to post your questions, have a go with N8N, start building out your workflows, leverage some of the templates inside the community, as well as cracking on with all of the resources that we have, the courses there that go over a lot of this fundamental stuff as well. So, we will progress into actually we've covered the core fundamentals here. We'll progress into larger workflows and show you exactly how data flows when there's more complex scenarios in here. And we will talk about the underlying data as well. So if you copy and paste any of these nodes, you can actually copy these to new workflows the same way in which you were able to download my file. We're basically dealing with a bunch of data, and on the front end, all we see is this visual drag and drop box on the front end. What we're going to do is progress into those more complex builds once we've covered the fundamentals to the next level in the next workshop next Wednesday. And we will go onto those two builds that will be all about actually how do we progress from something like ChatGPT, actually start integrating AI into this to actually write social media content for you. And then how do we actually access AI where we work as well? As you go through the week, if you've not been on School before, it's a fantastic resource that combines kind of live sessions like this, community where you can ask all your questions, and actually we will get back to those questions. And then also the classroom where you can see all of the different courses. So if you want to expand on the knowledge today, we'll obviously share the recording for this session inside the live workshop. Down here, we'll put module 4, be recording 1 or something like that, where you can come back and actually go through the motions of doing this again. This is something that actually you just need to put in some consistency. It might have felt confusing today, but as you go through, you'll start to see the same things pop up again and again, especially in session 2 next week. You'll start to see familiar things that you've already seen, and then we'll start to build on that knowledge from there. Hopefully that was useful for you guys. I'll stick around for about 5 minutes or so and answer any questions that you've got in here, but I will stop sharing my screen for now. And of course, fire me a DM or send a question in the community whenever you've got them. And thank you for coming. Thanks, Florian. Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Hal. Thanks, Kamar. Thanks, Mark, Devasis, Mano, Abigail, David, Lily. Thank you so much. How long have I been automating for? That's a great question. About 18 months now. So I started, I almost fell into N8N by accident, actually. I was trying to learn how to code from scratch and found it extremely painful, too technical, and ended up finding N8N. And yeah, the rest is history. I started implementing N8N inside businesses about 3 weeks after I'd initially started learning. Could it be possible to automate Google and Instagram research? I'd like to for a specific professional category in a specific area. Absolutely. What kind of things are you looking to actually research is it pull information from certain Instagram pages. While I'm waiting on Antonello to come back with that, yes, that's right, Abigail. So after 3 weeks of kind of learning and going through tutorials, there are a lot fewer tutorials and YouTube videos out there at the time. I just decided to actually learn and earn at the same time. So I jumped straight onto Upwork. At the time, there were maybe 10 to 20 posts per day that were about automating certain things, whether they said using NAN or not. I kind of just put myself in there, applied for a few of those roles, ended up jumping on a call with some people, and I felt very out of my depth at the time. I felt like maybe I, wasn't good enough to be automating things for other people's businesses when I'm 3 weeks into learning this stuff. But sometimes it pays to just actually learn whilst you earn. I'd never used Airtable, and the client was adamant that we must use Airtable for everything. But what that really does is act as a forcing function to progress your learning really quickly because I needed to make it work to get paid. So Antonello, if you want to scrape things like Instagram and Facebook, we'll actually talk a lot about this in the future sessions because we use a service called Apify.com. So what we didn't talk much about today was inside NAN, whenever you click on the nodes panel, like obviously NAN hasn't integrated every single surface a service under the sun. So we can probably connect to LinkedIn directly through here, but we probably can't scrape any posts from LinkedIn or anything like that. We can just create a post. So NAN has some very limited functionality with some apps. Now, when that is not possible, we actually use what we call a HTTP request or just an API call. And we will go to a service like Apify to basically say, whenever we can't do something on NAN, we probably can do it through Apify. And it's just pre built nodes, I guess you can treat them as, that other people have created. So, say I wanted to scrape Instagram, you can see that's actually one of their top use cases. We can click on that, and we'll talk a bit more about this in detail when we build out a LinkedIn post generator. But we can basically say, for these profiles, I want to scrape all that information and then use it or use AI to actually do something with that information. So, yeah, it's absolutely possible. AI automations is rapidly becoming an AI goldmine that I've observed people jumping on this bandwagon. Since the past 18 months, is there still room to create a business? Absolutely. And actually, a lot of people think this when they're getting started. But what you don't realize is actually that you are still super, super early in the process of actually being able to functionally use AI in your business. Like, think how far things like ChatGPT have come over the last 2 years alone. And actually, even though I started 18 months ago, we're still very much in the same space. People are asking for the same things to be automated, content creation, all these things. Like, actually, most people still, 99% of people do not know how to actually automate them. So there's always demand when you can actually produce value. What is hosting and self hosting? Great question. So when you sign up through NAN Cloud, that is what we call cloud hosting, or it's hosted for you. So NAN have decided where they want to store your workflow data, and they manage and control the server which it's stored on. When you are self hosting, what you're doing is deciding for yourself that I actually want to store that data where I want, and I want to manage the updates to my data. So you selectively decide, I want to store it on this data or store it on this server. So some of the benefits of doing that is it can be cheaper. You're not relying on NAN to actually price your workflow executions. You're actually saying, I just want to rent space on a server where I'm going to store all of my execution logs and things like that as well. So, like, functionally, it's much easier to get started with cloud because you can sign up on a 14-day free trial within a few clicks. It's a little bit harder and a little bit more technical, although not majorly technical, to sign up to a self-hosted service. And a lot of services do that still almost out the box. One of the downsides of doing that is that actually you do have to do the updates to your servers. You need to make sure that basically you're storing data where you're happy. Um, yeah, there's a few downsides, and probably one of the biggest downsides, which you might have seen today if you're already self-hosting using something like Railway or Less.io, is when you go to actually sign up on a service like Google Mail, it's actually significantly harder. You have like barriers in which to create your credentials versus when you're going through cloud, it's very simple. It's very much just click this button, sign in through Google authentication, and it works for you. Whereas if you're self-hosting, you have to go and get a few keys from the back end and do stuff like that as well. So when you're getting started, I recommend just utilizing that 14-day free trial. And when you're ready to make the jump, then go to self-hosted. Yeah, that's right. There's 4 webinars in total over the next 4 weeks. So this was webinar 1. We'll share the recording of this in the module, and then we will come back for the other 3 every Wednesday as well. Do you help us to get these opportunities? Mano, are you referring to the actual clients, et cetera, as well? If so, yes, we absolutely do. So let me quickly share my screen. Yeah, let me share my screen. And sorry, I realized I wasn't sharing Apify when I was talking about it. So this is Apify with the Instagram scraper that I was talking about. But yes, we absolutely do help you get those clients. So inside the classroom module in the school community, we have kind of this series of this is where you start, the AI automation masterclass, of which the 4 workshop series is like a fraction of what we teach there, but still focused on the core 80/20. And then the other module that is really critical for your learning pathway is actually the agency launchpad. So, how do you actually go from zero, where you have no product offering, no experience building these out, to actually landing your first client in there? So, we help you with that process. We talk about the different platforms like cold email and predominantly through Upwork, because that's my experience and others' experience as well. How do we actually deliver to those clients and make sure that those clients want to come back with more? We do things like helping people review their profiles over Loom, all sorts of stuff we offer support around as well. You're welcome. Okay, great stuff, guys. Thank you so much for attending. Oh, there's a few more. How long will it take to get through all the learning material in the classroom? I'd signed up for your 7-day free trial. Do you think it's possible to consume all learning materials in 7 days? It's absolutely possible. It depends how determined you are. So the 4 workshop series is designed to go over a month. So we'll obviously be running this for a month. And if you enjoyed this first workshop, you're welcome to stay into the paid membership for a month just to attend those 4 workshop series. The learning material is as quick as you want to make it. So there's, I think, 11 to 17, I think it's closer to 15 to 17 hours in this AI automation masterclass. And it kind of goes through all the fundamentals. And we'll be updating that actually in the next couple of weeks as well. But yeah, it depends how quickly you want to get through this. Of course, you can absolutely smash through all the materials. But what actually is going to benefit you is once you've done those materials, going to the resource hub, looking at some of the larger systems that actually replace big business systems. So, for example, we are going to do a miniature version of our LinkedIn content generation flow. And we have various other systems as well that you can then take, and once you've understood the fundamentals, you can then adapt it to your use cases as well. Abigail, yes, there is. So I think Solomon's already answered this, but basically we have a free community and our main community. The main community, you've come to be part of a free trial. which is where we run the 4 workshop series over. So this was obviously session number 1, but we also have the Scrapes.ai Foundations, where in the classroom module, we have a 7-day challenge. But as you're already part of the free trial for the Scrapes AI Academy, I'd highly recommend actually just starting with the AI Automation Masterclass, which is an extended version of that. Treat it like a 15 to 30 day activity to get through that content as well and start putting that into practice as well. It's a good question, Mano. So when you finish a module, you need to make sure that you tick the green dot. So actually, it's a manual thing just for tracking your own progress. So if you want to finish a module and keep your progress, whoops, just go in and actually tick the box yourself. Some of them will automatically tick, I think, when you get to the end of the video, but if not, you can manually tick that as well. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you so much, guys. Love doing this and looking forward to next Wednesday. Thanks, guys. Have a good week. Bye.